Yeah, looking for blood on the street. Struggle. Hard
Good evening. We
times.
begin tonight in Buffalo, New York, where there is grief, shock, and anger after a gunman wearing tactical gear and a live streaming camera killed 10 people and wounded 3 others in a racially motivated shooting rampage at a busy supermarket in a black neighborhood. In Buffalo, New York, a community mourns, remembering the 10 people killed in what officials call a racist hate crime Saturday at Tops Supermarket. 3 other victims are recovering from their injuries.
The thought that somebody would hate enough to come into this area and this Tops and kill anybody was just, I can't even explain to you the pain that I feel. I couldn't even sleep.
Among those killed, 86-year-old Ruth Whitfield, described by her son as a mother to the motherless. Pearlie Young, age 77, who ran a food pantry for 25 years. And Aaron Salter Jr., a retired police officer and longtime supermarket security guard, called a hero for trying to take down the assailant. 10 of the 13 people shot were black.
This individual came here with the expressed purpose of taking as many black lives as he possibly could.
The suspect, Peyton Gendron, was arraigned hours after the shooting. He pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder. Officials say the alleged gunman drove to Buffalo from his hometown 200 miles away and live-streamed the attack online. Eyewitnesses say they watched him shoot 4 people outside the store, then continue the attack inside.
I heard at least 20 shots in store.
He then put a gun to his neck, but officials say police officers convinced him to drop it. He was apprehended and transferred to Buffalo Police Headquarters. After the shooting, a manifesto surfaced online, which authorities say they believe the suspect wrote. It cited the racist Great Replacement theory, the false idea that whites are being replaced by people of color and that it will result in the extinction of the white race.
This was no other way to describe it than white supremacy terrorism. It's racism, it's hatred.
For more now on the role of extremism and white supremacy in the Buffalo shooting, I'm joined by Kathleen Belew. She is author of Bring the War Home, The White Power Movement and Paramilitary America. She's also an assistant professor of history at the University of Chicago. It's good to have you with us. And the Buffalo suspects, his alleged writing about white replacement theory, it, as you well know, is very similar to what we've seen in mass shootings involving other far-right white supremacist gunmen. Help us understand the parallels and why this is so pervasive.
So one thing I would start with is just to know that when we say manifesto, we're not trying to convey any kind of authority on this document. What is going around as the Buffalo Manifesto is really a cut and paste of a number of other similar documents, most notably the document written and circulated by the gunman in Christchurch, New Zealand, when he opened fire on 2 mosques there a few years ago. The same language comes up when these documents are circulated by shooters who seem to be targeting very different communities, such as worshipers at mosques in New Zealand, shoppers in Mexican American and Mexican communities in El Paso, Texas. We could think of the Tree of Life shooting in Pittsburgh, the Charleston shooting of Bible study worshipers. All of these seem to be one-off events carried out by lone gunmen, when in fact they are all perpetrated by people who share an ideology. They're all part of the organized white power movement. It's a movement that is at war on our democracy and on these targeted communities in ways that are with us in inescapable ways.
I want to ask you about something you tweeted today, because you said there needs to be accountability both for the shooter and the broad system of ideas that gave rise to that event. On that latter point, what does accountability look like? And I ask the question because at Fox News, you've got Tucker Carlson. He has the highest rated show on cable. He talks often about the Great Replacement theory. The Republican Congresswoman, Elise Stefanik, a member of GOP House leadership, she invoked that conspiracy theory in her campaign ads last year. So you've got powerful voices in the Republican Party amplifying and legitimizing these racist conspiracy theories. So what does accountability look like?
We might add to that list Stephen Miller, when he was in the Trump administration, circulating material like Camp of the Saints, which is an openly white power novel about Great Replacement theory happening in Europe. So as a historian, I don't know if this set of people believes what they're saying or if they're trying to sort of opportunistically use this movement for their own purposes, whether that is to get their ratings or make their money or get their votes. Um, but what we do know is that once this movement is called to arms, it does not stand back down. And one of the consequences of using this kind of rhetoric is events like the shooting in Buffalo. You can't separate one from the other, and you can't, in good conscience, say that you're unaware of these violent implications of that kind of language. The other thing that I would say is that real accountability means the very difficult work of connecting what seem like one-off events with the rest of this organized movement, which includes things like one part of the January 6th crowd was these activists who are highly militarized, highly organized, and undertook that action as a public performance piece of activism that was meant to recruit and radicalize exactly the people like this shooter. Now, we don't know the precise nature of the radicalization in this case. I think there's something in the document which is still being verified about this person being radicalized in January of 22. But we do know that many people were sort of brought into these circles online by the pandemic, by January 6th, by the BLM protest backlash, by anti-masking protests. This whole landscape is what we have to contend with, and not any one of these single violent events.
I was going to ask you that in the minute that we have left. I mean, what will it take to prevent future instances of this kind of white supremacist extremist violence?
The hard part is that this is a movement that has been waging this war on our country since the late 1970s and early 1980s. It has been organized incredibly effective around single acts of violence like this one. And only in the last few years have we begun to start to ask that question at the level of institutions. What we need is a broad-based set of changes having to do with individual communities, public perception, but also our legal instruments, our surveillance priorities, and real restorative justice work in the communities like Buffalo that are impacted. We've got to start that now. We're already years, decades behind.
Kathleen Belew, thanks so much for your time and for your insights this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to Word on the Street, where we bring you hot topics. All right, today we're going to go over the top 10 shameful acts of terrorism against black people in America that the mainstream media has chosen to ignore. Now, let's start with this one. The bombing in Philadelphia. All right, so we don't hear about this. Let's see the details of what happened. Let me blow that up so you could get a better look. This happened in Philadelphia. All right, so let's go back. And read what happened. It was about 30 years ago. The police forces proved just how brutally they could be when it came dealing with the black community. Philadelphia officers successfully carried out a massive mission to bomb the headquarters of a group called MOVE. A 1996 report by CNN explained the 1985 bombing targeted MOVE because the organization consists of mostly black members who adopted the name Africa. Sick. Let's keep going. They supported simplistic lifestyles that shunned technology and advocated for the return to nature. The deadly bombing came during an intense police standoff with the MOVE member after the officer had already slammed many members with what were considered to be bogus charges of parole violations, contempt of court, and making terroristic threats, according to a report titled "It Looked Just Like a War Zone." More than 60 homes were destroyed in the resulting blaze. A total of 11 black people, including 5 children, was killed. So they killed 5 children. And this is sick. This is sick. So that's one. Alright, we're going to look at 10 accounts. And we're going to bring some bonus stuff also. So hang in there. So we're going to move to the Tulsa race riot. Alright, the Tulsa race riot, which is Black Wall Street. These sick folks. Let's blow that up. That's when they bombed Tulsa, Oklahoma from the sky because the black people was too successful for their liking. Alright, so let's go to the details and read what happened. Alright, race riots were much too common throughout the 1900s, but Tulsa riots were unique in the fact that it targeted the wealthiest black communities in the U.S. at the time. Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was known as Black Wall Street, in 1921, a group of white people attacked the community in a result that lasted roughly 16 hours. According to the Riot and Remembrance, the Tulsa Race War and its legacy, more than 800 black people were taken to the hospital. Roughly 10,000 black people were left homeless. More than 6,000 black residents in the district were arrested and detained after they tried to defend themselves against the white mobs. And about 35 cities were blocked. 35 city blocks were destroyed by fire. While the official death toll varied greatly, a report titled "A Black Holocaust in America" estimated more than 800 people were killed simply because the white landowners felt threatened by this black community financial success. Alright, you see, the first story, we wanted to live healthy and live with nature. We want to live a simplistic lifestyle that shunned technology, and that's why they killed us. Alright? Right here, they was jealous of our wealth, so they killed us. So in America has proven that they're not going to let us get ahead. Even if we work hard, America is a terrorist organization against our people. Let's continue. We're gonna get that closure by the end. So we are at 3, the Black Holocaust. All right, this is sick. All right, so look at these people. They starved them to death. It's sad. So these people like walking dead. So let's read what happened. All right, in the 1890s, black people were brutally tortured in German concentration camps, in which is now Namibia. According to the book German's Black Holocaust, 1890 to 1945. The untold truth: black people were the subject of unspeakably horrendous medical experiments that the book author, historian, and university instructor Furpo W. Carr says were never placed upon the so-called fake Jews. Thousands of Africans were massacred. So he says that this was never placed upon the so-called Jews. Thousands of Africans were massacred, Carr wrote. Regrettably, historians neglected to properly register the slaughter. That is, to lift it from the footnote of history. That is, it had been re- relegated to Slovakia. All right. So let's move to the next one. All right. So this is the story we just read. All right. In Namibia, the Black Holocaust caused by the Germans, and this story they try to hide it. So like the author said, the instructor Furpo W. Carr says were never placed upon the Jews. So this affliction was never placed upon the fake Jews. All right, let's go forth. So this is the next one, the Notting Hill riots in 1958. So we never knew about a lot of this stuff. The Notting Hill riots lasted from August 30th to September 5th and led to the death of many Caribbean migrants in London at the time. So a lot of people went from Jamaica to the Caribbean. Reports published by 20th Century London explain that a large number of Caribbean migrants were making their way to London and often found homes in poor neighborhoods. Notting Hill in North Kensington was the most popular destination. Eventually, the Notting Hill community had a strong presence of people from Trinidad and Barbados. Tensions rose between white working class men and the Caribbean community. They believed they were competing with. Violent acts against the black community started sweeping the area. On August 30th, a group of about 400 white youths used petrol bombs and milk bottles to damage black people's homes in an attempt to run the migrants out of the neighborhood. So this happened in England or London, in the UK. There was some sick people over there. I'm talking about Esau. The white people over there, they real arrogant. All right, so let's go to the next one. All right, so let's continue. Now we're gonna go to the next one. These right here, it doesn't populate when you go to the web page because it's very brutal. All right, so let's see the picture. All right, you see what's going on here? They hanging our brothers, and look at these people. They're around, they posing, they so excited. They wicked, and they used to eat our bodies also. All right, so let's read the article. All right, the epidemic of lynching. According to the FBI official website, an act of the act that violates federal and state law intends to intimidate the, the course of civilian population is considered to be domestic terrorism. All right, so who's the terrorist in this picture? Esau, aka the white man. There is no arguing sorry, that the lynching of the massive number of black people fits that description. Recently, a report titled Lynching in America, Confronting the Legacy of Racial Terror reveals that nearly 4,000 black people has been lynched in America alone between 1877 and 1950, and it's way more than that. They always fabricate and lie. This number doesn't count the many black people who were lynched and secretly disposed, and nor does it count the many black communities across the globe that were plagued by lynching. Even today, mainstream media outlets are meekly tiptoeing around the brutal truth of America's racist roots. An article about the report published by the New York Times has New York Times was harshly criticized after the outlet managed to cover the entire report without ever really stating the race of the people who were doing the lynching. All right, so let's go to the next one. It's called police brutality. These people are sick. Oh, that's nothing right there. I mean, it's something, but they should have showed George Floyd. All right, so let's go. All right, so the epidemic of police brutality. The epidemic of police brutality against the black community in America is a problem that exists centuries ago. So centuries is hundreds of years ago, and it's still plaguing America now. While mainstream media provides racially biased coverage of death of unarmed teen Michael Brown and Staten Island father Eric Gardner, this coverage came after years of ignoring black people who were gunned down by police officers, and was likely just a reaction to the outrage on social media as race discussion dominates cyberspace. Even as news outlets discussed the death of Brown and Gardner, many other unarmed black people were being killed by police officers and never saw single media headlines. Meanwhile, several police departments like the Cleveland Police Department and the Chicago Police Department have been under investigation after studies support the theory that the departments are racially charged launching racially racially charged attacks on the black community, and we charge genocide coalition. The We Side Genocide Coalition has even accused the Chicago Police Department of torture and recently represented its own study to the United Nations. All right, so let's go to the next one. All right, Operation Just Cause. And this was a U.S. invade Panama. So let's click on that. And those are brothers. Everyone who went in slavery on those slave ships is our brother. All right, so this is the picture of that. These people is the terrorists of the world, the whole world terrorists, the Roman Empire. All right, let's see what happened here. Ironically, okay, the U.S. invasion of Panama. Ironically enough, in 1989, U.S. invaded Panama was codenamed Operation Just Cause. But many would argue that there was nothing just about the chaotic attack of these black communities. Human rights strategist Jamu Baroika referred to the invasion as the reminder that the U.S. disregards the lives of blacks. Disregards for black lives extend well beyond its own borders. The black lives taken by the numerous assaults on Panama 25 years ago should be a sober reminder that U.S. state violation is not confined to ghettos or burials in the U.S., but is a central component of racism, colonial capitalist projects that the U.S. Borica said of the attack. We cannot pretend that the police brutality in the United States and the devaluation of black life that represents that it represents is restricted just to the black experience in the heart of United U.S. Empire. Reports from Algeria explains that an accurate death toll of the attack isn't valuable because many bodies of black civilians were piled in the streets and burned. Wow. The accurate death toll that the attack isn't valuable because many bodies of black civilians were piled in the streets and burned. Wow. This is sick. This is sick. This is sick. And look at this one. The genocide of Darfur. I'm learning this as we go. Back in 1989, the seeds were planted for what would grow to be a historic genocide in Darfur, a large region in Sudan. So this is in Sudan, Africa. That is the home of roughly 6 million people. General Omar Bashir took control of the country by military coup. Wow. And allowed for National Islamic Front government to inflame region tensions. An article published by the United Human Rights Council explained, as weapons started to pile into the area, violent conflicts started sparking between African farmers and nomadic Arab tribes. By 2003, two rebel movements in Darfur complained that the government wasn't doing enough to protect its people. The government response was unleash violent Arab militaries called Janjaweed, was translated to devils on horseback. Janjaweed, devils on horseback. The militia destroyed more than 400 villages, and the violence is still sweeping a region today and forcing many African farmers to flee or risk being murdered at the hands of the Janjaweeds. More than 400,000 black people were being killed in the madness. The United Human Rights Council report more than 2 million had been displaced. So all over the world. And you got to remember that Arabs are considered Caucasians, even in the Bible, because Idumea, the kingdom of Edom, and the Sumerians worked together to conspire against the children of Israel, especially the southern kingdom of Israel, called Judea. All right, so let's continue. So Arabs are considered Caucasians. Just like Muhammad was a white Arab, he'd be considered an Edomite. He was an Edomite. Muhammad was an Edomite, a white Arab. All right, so let's continue. The next one is, all right, let's see here. What's the head of the story? All right. Silent Paradise. A silent. I'm sorry, I gotta put my glasses on. Silent Parade of 1917. All right, let's go with that. Put my glasses. All right. On on July 28, 1917, a group of about 8,000 to 10,000 black people came together for a parade to protest anti-black violence and lynching. The parade came after news spread of the East St. Louis riots that were sparked in May of the same year. Unfortunately, the elite community in New York stood in solidarity with the people who were massacring black people all across the country. White mobs interrupted the parade and started killing unarmed black civilians. According to an encyclopedia named after W.E.B. Du Bois, reports that of the death toll during the silent parade vary, with some reports suggesting roughly 40 black people were killed, while others claim more than 250 were killed. Wow, never heard of this. Silent parade in 1917. Sick, sick, sick. It's so sick. Alright, acts of terrorism against black people. Let's see, they hide the ones that's real violent. Boom, the white man. It's the real terrorist. Alright, let's see what happened. Alright, Boko Haram attacks and massive kidnapping. Nations were rightfully infiltrated when terrorists killed 17 people in France in January, all because of an offensive cartoon. But the same anger and fury seems to vanish when it came to the lives of people in Nigeria. At roughly the same time that terrorists were attacking France, Boko Haram gunmen killed an estimate of 2,000 people in Nigeria. According to eyewitness accounts, this came sometime after the same extremist group kidnapped thousands of schoolgirls in Chibok in Nigeria back in 2014. While an initial Bring Back Our Girls movement garnered a little buzz, the public attention quickly faded away, just as it did with more than 50 with the more recent Boko Haram attack.
Actually have an exclusive for you and our viewers, and it is from inside of this church during the Bible study. And I want to put the picture up on the screen. The first one, you're looking at the first image that you're going to see inside of this church during the Bible study. This is, if you look at the corner of your screen, the man in gray, the person you see in the gray sweatshirt, is 21-year-old Dylan Roth in this prayer service, in this Bible study, before any of that shooting started. The images that we got this from one of the victims, his Snapchat account. Twanza Sanders, a friend, contacted our producer on our show, Ian McKenna, and sent him this image and the other image that you're going to see here. The other image that you see, and it's shocking to see him among this group. This is another victim in this. It's State Senator and the pastor at this church, Clementa Pinckney, inside the Bible study, leading the Bible study. These are the only images that we know that exist now from inside this church when this happened.
All right, let's continue. Now we're gonna go over this nice detailed article here. It's titled "White Terrorism from Post-Civil War Lynching to Present." All right, by Walter G. Moss. All right, and this is a picture of details of Lauren Breitler's photo of a lynching of Thomas Shipp and Abram Smith, Marlin, Indiana, August 7th, 1930. The violent operation of the U.S. Capitol building on 2006 shocked many people into realizing white terrorism is scary. Soon afterwards, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser told Meet the Press host Chuck Todd that the essential question was how serious our country will take threats of domestic white extremism and terrorism. Todd later added that the right-wing white terrorists perpetuated the majority of all plots and attacks in American states from 1994 to 2020. Over the past 6 years, these attacks have occurred in 42 states. In other words, the violence we witnessed on January 6th has been hiding in plain sight. Now, I do want to go down to here. Now, this is a song. All right, we're gonna read this. This is a Southern song that the white people used to sing. Song of the century, revealing graphic and horrific and horror of such lynching. Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the roots. Black bodies swing in the southern breeze. Strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Pastoral scenes of the Gallic South, the bulging eye and the twisting mouth, scent of magnolia, sweet and fresh, then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is a fruit for the crow to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rot, for the trees to drop. Here is a strange and bitter crop. Now, these people are sick as hell. A report of lynching in 2007 by Equal Justice Initiative EJI documented over 5,000 radical terrorist lynching between 1877 and 1950, overwhelmingly in the South, where until 1910, about 90% of black people such lynchings were often hanging, but could also include other forms of illegal killings. Both before and after the period of black people were also lynched. So we're going to drop down here. And we're going to read this comment. Most white terrorist activities in recent decades, like the Oklahoma bombing of 1995 or the shooting deaths of 9 black congregants in 2015 in Charleston, South Carolina, were not KKK directed, but still reflects a similar white supremacist mindset. It was often mixed with hostility of the federal government and the perceived infringement on citizen rights, for example, in regards of any type of gun control. So right now, we're going to go ahead and take a look at that 2015 Charleston, South Carolina killing, and we will be right back with that in a second.
21-year-old Dylan Roof could hear the families, but he could not see them. Bond was set at $1 million on one of the charges. Justice correspondent Jeff Pegues has more from that hearing. Jeff?
Scott, Dylan Roof is being held in a jail cell in a building behind this barbed wire fence. We're told that he's in solitary confinement and under suicide watch.
What is your age?
21. Dylan Roof stood emotionless as he heard the charges against him. 9 counts of murder for the 3 men and 6 women investigators say he gunned down Wednesday night.
Charleston is a very strong community. We have big hearts.
From the bench, Chief Magistrate James Gosnell expressed sympathy and support for both the victims of the shooting and Roof's family.
We must find it in our heart at some point in time, not only to help those that are victims, but to also help his family as well.
All units responding, 110 Calhoun State. Active shooter, multiple people down.
New details emerged today about Wednesday's horrific rampage. According to a warrant for his arrest, Roof, seen here on surveillance video, entered Emmanuel AME Church around 8:06 p.m. wearing a fanny pack. After attending a Bible study class for an hour, the court documents say he stood up and pulled out a handgun and began shooting. All 9 victims were shot multiple times. The warrant says that before Roof left, he stood over a witness and uttered a racially inflammatory statement. CBS News has learned Roof told a witness that he had spared her life so she could tell others what happened. In addition to her, a woman and a 5-year-old boy also survived by playing dead. Joseph Riley is the mayor of Charleston, South Carolina.
I knew many of these people. I admired them and loved them and worked with them. And so it's the hardest thing I've done in this job and probably the hardest thing I'll do in my life.
Roof evaded capture for more than 12 hours. According to the warrant, Roof's father and uncle recognized him from the surveillance image released to the public and contacted the Charleston Police Department. Roof's father also told police his son owned a .45 caliber handgun. When Roof was apprehended in Shelby, North Carolina yesterday, law enforcement sources say a Glock 41, a .45 caliber handgun, was found in his car. He was arrested and taken to the Shelby police station.
Why did you do it?
Law enforcement sources say during an interrogation, Roof revealed that he had been planning the attack for some time and that he chose the church because it was an historic African-American church. Sources say he also revealed that while he was sitting in the Bible study, he considered abandoning his plan, but then changed his mind because a source says he thought if he didn't do it, no one else would. If convicted, Roof could get the death penalty. And Scott, we learned today that the Department of Justice is investigating this case as both a hate crime and an act of domestic terrorism.
Jeff Pegues on the investigation for
getting an exclusive look at the moment the shooter was arrested and the warning signs that were missed. Stephanie Ramos starts us off from Buffalo. Good morning, Stephanie.
George, good morning. President Biden and the First Lady will be here in Buffalo this morning, paying their respects here at the Tops Supermarket and also meeting with the families of the victims. The president is expected to call for federal hate crime legislation so that what happened here never happens again.
This morning, chilling new details on how the gunman behind the deadly mass shooting at a Buffalo, New York supermarket plotted his racist rampage.
The individual was here a few months ago, back in early March.
Authorities now confirming 18-year-old Peyton Gendron visited Tops Supermarket 2 months before he shot and killed 10 people in what the FBI calls a racially motivated attack. ABC News obtaining a 589-page document containing the suspect's alleged posts on the site Discord. Authorities say it appears to show how the gunman carefully planned out the massacre, visiting the supermarket on March 8th, where he was questioned by a security guard. The document also included sketches of the supermarket, outlining different aisles he could navigate quickly. The shooter allegedly describing the store as his first location, listing other possible locations to attack nearby. Police say the shooter visited the store again the day before his deadly assault to conduct reconnaissance, then came back Saturday and opened fire.
There's a lot of people dead in here.
This exclusive video capturing the shock and terror in the shooting's aftermath as the gunman was arrested.
Oh my God, he shot so many people in there.
Julie Harwell, seen here falling to the ground, inconsolable. Her partner and 8-year-old daughter were inside. Overnight, her partner telling ABC News he and their daughter London had separated from Julie because they wanted to buy ingredients for a surprise birthday cake.
I took my daughter so she can pick out what cake that we were going to bake for her mother's birthday, try to surprise her.
And then what did you hear?
Well, first you hear the gunshot, I see all the people running, so I just grabbed my daughter, ran in the back.
Lamont and London hiding in a cooler as they recounted to our affiliate WKBW.
I was scared for my mom. I didn't know where she was. I thought she was gone.
They were separated for 20 minutes, which felt like an eternity.
That was the longest wait I've ever had in my life.
While they made it out alive, the gunman killing 10 people. Celestine Cheney, Roberta Drury, Andre McNeil, Catherine Massey, Margus Morrison, Hayward Patterson, Aaron Salter Jr., Geraldine Talley, Ruth Whitfield, and Pearl Young. Hayward Patterson had just been at his church's soup kitchen before he left for the supermarket.
He loved the community just as much as he loved the church. And so you would see him anywhere he was encouraging people, to be the best that they can be.
Now, a demand for answers. Authorities revealing the shooter was investigated last spring after writing a paper shortly before graduation that referenced committing murder-suicide. The school calling state police, but no charges were filed.
The individual was brought in for a mental health evaluation. He was evaluated and then he was released.
Overnight, the suspect's friend, Matthew Casado, telling ABC News the gunman dropped off ammo boxes at his house the day before the shooting, allegedly unannounced. The friend's family calling authorities to have that picked up. And George, this is just one piece of evidence investigators are looking into.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos.